Hi guys, how's everyone doing? It's nice to see you all here. Can you hear me okay? I know I always do the little sound check at the beginning. I've got to figure out where to put this microphone because I tried to clip it onto me and it kind of didn't really want to stay. So we're gonna try again. But that's what okay, well it's kind of staying there. Is the sound okay with the microphone there? Or does it sound better when I'm a bit closer to it? Let me just say hi to everyone. Hi, Peterbrook. Hi, Evie. Hi, Anna. Hi, Kylie. It's nice to see you guys all here. Okay, it's a bit muted. Fine. I might just hold the microphone for today then, if that is okay with everybody. It's yeah, I have to pick what I wear, specifically so that I can clip the microphone on and it stays. So yeah, good to know. Hi, Maria. Welcome, welcome. Um, how is everybody today? How are you all doing? Have you had a good day? And let's see. Cool. So there's 12 of us, and I'm sure people will kind of filter in. I have a couple of things that I've kind of been looking into and that I've prepared. Actually, let me just grab one thing really quickly. Bear with me. If anyone needs a little nudge or a little reminder to grab some water or grab a tea or a drink or something, please do. And also my sessions generally aren't like super visual, so feel free to like listen along while you're doing something else if needed. And if there is any kind of specific exercises or things that you need to grab, I'll let you know, but I think probably not today. Okay, so your day is just beginning, Peterbrook. So Peterbrook, I'm wondering, what do people typically call you day to day in your life? Do you prefer being called Peterbrook, or do people like abbreviate it at all, or call you anything else? Lauren. Wait, so people call you Lauren? So is that your actual name? And also what would you like us to call you here in the community? Because I think yeah, Lauren's definitely a little bit easier to say. And where does the Peterbrook come from? Is that like a last name? Um so I feel like I might have left the oven on. Let me just check. I don't think I did. I think it might just be like cooling down. No, we're all good. I just thought I didn't want to start any fires while we're in the session. So on that note, actually, interestingly enough, for this show that I've mentioned before that I'm volunteering as part of, I've got to do first aid and fire fighting training. Or not firefighting. I think it's like first aid and fire safety training on Sunday. So that'll be um like definitely a step out of my comfort zone and something different. So Peter Burke, you said both are. Peter's fine. PB is your birth name. Lauren's your adopted name. Cool. Well, I'm sure I will just call you Peter Burke because I'm so used to calling you that, and also that's what you've got on your Insight Timer profile. So I thought I would start today with a little bit of a fun reading, which I might also end with because I know that by the time we start and end, we have a lot more people kind of join us. So this book that I've picked up from the library is called The Comfort Book, and it's by a guy called Matt Haig, and it just had a really pretty cover. And I picked it up at a time where I could have used a little bit of a boost and a little bit of positivity, and I thought it'd be kind of a good little like read to give me some comfort. And I never actually ended up reading it properly. Hi, Tea Lady Nat. For those of you who don't know, if you look at Tea Lady Nat's profile, she's got a quite interesting business venture, which I don't think I'm allowed to talk about too much on Insight Timer. But like, add her as a friend, and check out her profile. And yeah, so this book that I was just going to do a little reading from, it's called The Comfort Book, and there's kind of little snippets. It's a little bit like the Messiah's Handbook that I picked up um, on Friday with you guys and showed you, where you can turn to random pages and there's like other messages. But these are a little bit longer than that. Some of them are a few pages, some of them are a couple of lines. So, as an example, one of them, where is it? I can't find any of the short ones, but I'm going to read out the one that I kind of came across today and thought was quite fun. So, and actually, I've just realised, so my favourite number is 21, and it's on page 121. So, this is called, I hope this email finds you well. I hope this email finds you calm. I hope this email finds you unflustered about your inbox. I hope this email finds you in a state of acceptance that this email isn't exactly important in the cosmic scheme of things. I hope this email finds your work happily unfinished. I hope this email finds you beneath a beautiful sky, with the wind tenderly caressing your hair like an invisible mother. I hope this email finds you lying on a beach, or maybe beside a lake. I hope this email finds you with the sunlight on your face. I hope this email finds you eating some blissfully sweet grapes. I hope this email finds you well, but you know what? It is okay if it doesn't, because we all have bad days. I hope this email finds you reading a really good poem or something else that requires no direct response from you. I hope this email finds you far away from this email. So I'm not entirely sure. Hi, Stephanie. Lovely to see you here. I'm not entirely sure what this book is in terms of, some of it is a bit kind of poetry-ish. Some of it is like little bits of like, I guess, nuggets of wisdom. So one of the other ones, which I found that I quite liked, is called Beware Because. Your value never needs to be justified. You aren't valuable because you work hard or earn a lot or can jump high or have a six pack or you built a business or you are kind or look good in selfies or present a TV show or can sit at the piano and play thoroughly soft by heart. Your value has no because. You are the right quantity. You are a full cup. You are worth yourself, and that is always enough. And I thought that was a really beautiful message for anyone that needs it. Hi, Marthies. And also, for those of you who don't know Stephanie, she's an awesome teacher on here. So give her a kind of follow and go to her sessions. They're honestly wonderful. I think she started out. I think you're quite new on here, as far as I know, or I only came across you kind of in recent months. But she's got some really really interesting sessions, and they're always like good vibes. I mean, all the teachers on here are pretty much. So yeah, nothing new. And I really appreciate you being here, all of you, teachers, particularly, because I honestly, it's a lot of my favorite teachers have come to my sessions, and it's one of the most wonderful things where, you know, people that I've sort of watched and followed for years, sort of making the time and feeling like my sessions are worth their time, and it's really lovely. And yeah, I really appreciate it. So, for those of you who just came in, I just read a couple of things from this book called The Comfort Book by Matt Haig. And there's a few other bits that I picked out that I'll sort of share shortly. But obviously, we're always here to talk about kind of community and building authentic, meaningful connections. That's kind of the overarching theme. And I know we sort of go off topic a little bit and you know go on tangents, I suppose, or other things within that, like communication, relationships, etc. And one of the things that I would say, if anybody here has anything that they need some support with, or you'd like some perspective or advice, or any way that the community here can support you, please let us know. So, in the last session I did on Friday, one of the meditators mentioned, and I call them meditators because that's what Insight Timer calls them. You know, right now it says there's 28 meditators here. Someone had a challenge around a friendship where, you know, this person would tell them that they'll ring them or want to make plans and then basically never follow through. And we kind of, between the community, like myself and some of the others here, shared some other perspectives on that situation, and you know, gave a little bit of our kind of view or how we would deal with it, and or just, I guess, questions to think about, such as, you know, in an example like that where you're feeling a bit taken for granted, is kind of, when you do make the effort with that person, even if you've got to initiate and you've got to kind of drive it forward, is it worth it for you? So, you know, and this is a phrase I use a lot, and I use it in my sessions too, but I say that everything has an exchange rate. So For example, if you go to the gym, the exchange rate is that you're going to sweat, you're going to potentially get tired, your muscles might ache afterwards, but ultimately the exchange rate there is that what you get in exchange for that discomfort or pushing yourself or whatever is that you will be healthier, stronger, potentially feel better for it. So in a similar way, when it comes to friendships and relationships, if you feel like you've got to do some of the kind of heavy lifting or make a bit more of the effort than the other person does initially, but then when you see them and you actually have time with them, you get something from that. And, you know, they are otherwise supportive and valuable and a good influence on your life, then the exchange rate is worth it. So that's how I like to think about things. For example, I think about this when it comes to food as well. Like if I want to eat something unhealthy, but and if I really want it and I'm really going to enjoy it, then the exchange rate is worth it. But if I'm going to have some chocolate that's not a chocolate I particularly enjoy or particularly like, but it's kind of just because it's there, then the exchange rate might not be so worth it. So I don't know whether that's like a good, a positive way of thinking about things, but I've certainly found it really insightful and really helpful. And, as an example, in my last relationship, part of the reason that I walked away was because the exchange rate became too high. The things that I was compromising on and the the kind of the things I was compromising on, the kind of needs that weren't being met, etc. I got to a point where what I was getting in exchange for that, of the positive things and like having a nice time and the good things from the relationship, were no longer worth the exchange rate, so to speak. So what I was giving up on wasn't worth what I was sort of getting in return. And it can be a bit of a like transactional way of looking at things. So I encouraged you to like kind of take it with a pinch of salt, but it's more in a sort of light-hearted way of um just looking at things, because everything has an exchange rate. So if you choose to wake up in the morning and you wake up early and get out of bed, even though you'd rather have a lie in, the exchange rate there is potentially a bit of extra sleep, you know having the coziness of your bed. However, the exchange rate is that you might get more stuff done, you might be more productive, you might be less stressed or less rushed like later in the day. It really depends on what the exchange rate is. Currently for me, I don't have to get up particularly early, so I go to bed a lot later than I should do and a lot later than I would like to. But currently, there isn't a huge way that that's impacting me, so I can get away with it, and it's okay for my routine at the moment. However, as we go into winter, I do want to make a bit more effort to wake up earlier and go to bed earlier, because obviously then I'll potentially lose out on some of the daylight sunshine hours. So, Jenny, you said you used to feel bad thinking about relationships like that, but now I'm so aware and protective of my own energy, it makes sense. Yeah, and hi, Jenny, by the way. Yeah, and hi, Vishal, as well. Who else have I missed saying hi to? Anyone else? JV, hi. So it is an interesting way of looking at it, but that's one thing that helps me, is like having clarity on what my kind of core values are and boundaries, and what I'm looking for in a relationship. When I got to a point where things didn't feel good or great, I was able to look at the list that I'd created kind of, separately beforehand, and say, okay, like, are my core needs being met? Are they not? And if not, potentially it was time to revisit whether this was working or whether it was something I wanted. Um, and yeah, exactly. Well, the more kind of protective you get of your own energy, the more attuned you are to what's important to you, what you care about, what matters, the easier it then becomes to set boundaries and um, put yourself first. And if something isn't working for you, be able to kind of acknowledge that and stand up for that and do something about it. And I think that goes for not just relationships, but jobs, friendships, loads of things. And that wasn't necessarily what I was going to talk about today, but one of the topics that I did have in mind to cover at some point, which I think might just happen today, is when we talk about, obviously, the whole purpose of this kind of the wider conversation we're having is around alleviating loneliness and isolation and creating as much community and connection as we can in our lives. And that's kind of, on a larger scale in terms of friendships, relationships, volunteering, how we spend our free time, doing things that bring us joy and light where we get to connect with other people. But also, and even on a smaller scale, smiling at strangers, like saying hi to the people that work in your local supermarket, um, getting to know your neighbors, etc. But one of the things I think within that we might sometimes lose sight on is existing relationships that we have, particularly friendships, family, etc. And this is kind of a difficult topic because I think a lot of people have had experiences like this, and it's there isn't always a clear answer. And I'm certainly not here to advocate that you should do a particular thing or not. My feeling, but essentially what I'm talking about is sort of with the people you have in your life, it is worth sometimes reflecting on who you spend your time with and how much energy you give to people in your life and in what ways and also why. So, for example, if you have friends or family or people in your life who actually, when you spend time with them, don't make you feel good or have a negative impact on you, um, there's a number of different ways to kind of look at that. And one of them is obviously, sometimes it's the other people and we need to set boundaries and protect our energy. And also, thank you for the hearts, guys. Feel free to share loads of hearts whenever things are resonating, or if you want me to carry on with a particular topic, it just helps me know like what's resonating. So one of the things that obviously is important is setting boundaries. So protecting your energy. Like, the plant just moved. Protecting your energy. I think it's because I've got the window open. Um, Protecting your energy where it's at cost to you. If the exchange rate is too high and spending time around someone, or putting yourself in a situation that isn't comfortable or healthy or doesn't feel safe for you, I think boundaries and sort of limiting time or energy around people that don't feel nice for you to be around is one part of it. But in my own experience, especially kind of in relationships, I find that sometimes, frankly, I'm the problem. So, what I mean by that, and I'm not saying that's always going to be the case, but I'm saying that, in most situations, most friendships, most relationships, family, whatever, there's two people usually in those kinds of dynamics, sometimes obviously more than two, if you're talking about a family unit or family situation. But we, even if like we're not the one doing the thing, um sometimes we enable the other person, and by not setting boundaries or for example not sort of putting ourselves first or speaking up for our needs or voicing our feelings, thoughts, whatever, we sometimes end up sort of, I'm trying to word this and I'm kind of at stream of consciousness right now, so I haven't obviously thought through what I'm saying before I'm saying it, but ultimately we can end up enabling the other person's behavior. And we also have a part to play, even in situations where we think we're the victim, we think that we are being treated badly or etc. Quite often we do have some kind of part to play, whether we like that or not. It doesn't feel good to necessarily like look at it that way. It's not like a nice thing, and frankly, this is something that's come up a lot, is that when we pass the blame or we kind of you know say that something is like someone else's fault, it may be, and they certainly probably do have a part to play, but it's worth also thinking about and looking at what is within our control and what are we doing that's either helping or hindering that situation as well. So that's kind of, on the one hand, is kind of boundaries and what part we have to play in situations where, let's say, the other person is objectively challenging or difficult, etc. But then the other part of it is actually sometimes, and in my experience this is what I'm talking about a lot more, is where maybe we, particularly me, sometimes, where we might be kind of being overly sensitive or where things trigger us, for example, and I personally have had situations where, the situation is like a 1 or 2 out of 10, but my reaction or response will be, let's say, a 7 or 8 out of 10. And that's not because, I'm sort of like dramatic or crazy or whatever, even though it could come across that way at times. It's because any time that you have like a really strong extreme response to anything like that, it's usually to do with past kind of trauma or something. There's like a deeper wound there. If you're reacting in a really big way to something small that's happening now, and there's a really nice phrase to this effect, and I can't think what it was. Hi, Ega, lovely to see you. There's a really good phrase, and it's like usually if it's there's something like I'll see if it comes to me, but essentially the sentiment of it is that if you have a big reaction to something, or if there's an extreme response, usually it's a past trigger or past trauma that's being triggered. Um, so that's kind of one of the things that I wanted to talk about is sort of the relationships that we have in our lives now, friendships, relationships, sort of community, people around us. It's worth doing a little kind of inventory or stock take of that, because there's a lot of reasons why we give time and priorities. Hi, Monica. Lovely to see you. There's a lot of reasons that we give time and prioritize people and things in our lives. And sometimes that's because, let's say, it's convenient or um, habit. Sometimes it's to do with like past connections. So if we've spent loads of time with someone over the years or we've known them for a really long time, we might be friends with them just because of that, not because they're kind of adding any real value or bringing any real like joy or contribution to our lives. They're not like helping us grow. And frankly, if we spend time with them, they're kind of depleting us, or it's not positive for anyone involved. Um, but I know a lot of people who have friendships and people that they still spend a lot of time with just because they've known that person for a long time, not because they have anything in common any longer, not because that person is helping them grow, not because, there's like any common ground anymore. So that's worth thinking about, because when I say about convenience, you might be friends with someone just because your kids go to the same school, or you see them at pickup every day, or they live in the same building as you, or you work together. And it's just kind of obviously easier to go for a drink, let's say, with someone that you work with because it's convenient, rather than a friend who really lights you up and brings you joy but lives like an hour away. So it's worth thinking about who you spend time with and why. I'm just checking the microphone's still on. And also looking at, there's another thing, is looking at people in your life who really have a positive impact on you and who truly care about you and bring, joy and light, but you don't spend that much time with. And that might not be because you don't want to, but I think it's a combination of things. It's like sometimes we get used to things being a certain way, or like, one of the things we talked about previously is that we kind of, this whole like exchange rate thing of, if it's harder for you to, if you have to make more effort with someone who, let's say, they're busy, or harder to like hang out with or get hold of, then you probably won't see them as much as like the friend that's always messaging you being like, oh, I'm not doing anything, I'm bored, I'm free, like, shall we hang out? And I think it's also important in those contexts to look at what is someone's lifestyle like. So generally speaking, if somebody is kind of healthy and well balanced, and let's say they work or have a family, and they have interests and hobbies and other, healthy friendships, relationships, and they spend time with their family, etc., they might be a little bit less available than someone who has nothing going on and like doesn't work on themselves and is always available, or always like wants to go for a coffee or a drink or whatever. And it might be easy to interpret that as, okay, well, this friend who's like always free makes a lot more effort and time for me and with me, whereas this other person like doesn't care about me. And what I'd say is like it is worth looking at context. So generally speaking, and this is kind of a blanket comment, so take it with a pinch of salt, but generally speaking, people that have stuff going on and have like full, healthy, happy lives generally will be a little bit busier, and maybe a little bit less available. But that doesn't mean that they don't care about you, or they don't have good intentions, or that they wouldn't be maybe a better like influence or a better person for you to spend time with. So it's worth thinking about things from that point of view of like, what is the context of someone's life, and what is how much capacity and time do they have generally, and therefore the amount of effort and energy they make with you. um where does that sit in the grand scheme of things? And like in the example I gave you of the other person, and I have someone in mind when I'm talking about this, not someone in my own life, but someone in the life of someone that I'm close to. And ultimately it does seem like this person has nothing going on and is bored and kind of always just wants to go for a drink or whatever. um but there's no like value that they're kind of bringing or adding. And but they might seem like they're a good friend because they're always available, but it's worth thinking about what that means. Like, what is a good friend or a good acquaintance or neighbor? Like, what's important to you, and what do you value, and what do you look for or want in the people that you spend time with? So I'm going to catch up on the comments because I think they're very relevant. So Laurie says, I have PTSD and been getting help for it. I'm really pleased to hear that, Laurie, that you've been getting some support. However, surrounding myself with safe people is difficult. It me or their energy if I'm uncomfortable with them. So that is a difficult one. And I think I'm somebody that has I've been told potentially that I have like CPSD, which is complex PTSD, which and I've not been told that by like I've been told that by weirdly a so someone who used to be a psychologist who then became a shamanic healer. And I had my one of my very close like neighbor friends gifted me a couple of years ago soul retrieval therapy. And ultimately she kind of talks you through, and I don't know if anyone's heard of this, but basically um she'll talk through all of your kind of childhood and the big sort of things that have happened in your life, like the big traumas, etc. And then she'll get some messages from spirit, and then she'll do some like shamanic things. I can't remember all of the details, but I know she sprinkled some water over me, and she had like some leaves that she like sort of hit slash brushed me with. And then she comes with like a message for me and tells me kind of what I need to do next. And one of the things, and she was the one that said that it sounds like I probably have CPTSD. So complex PTSD is where there isn't like one single event that happened that causes the PTSD. It's like complex, which means that it's like a number of things over a period of time. So, and yeah, I think like as a result, one of the things that I can really empathize with you, Laurie, is that safety is really, really important to me. So everything generally that I do in my life or the people I spend time with, kind of one of the biggest priorities I have is feeling safe, feeling heard, feeling um supported, etc. And so any situations where I don't feel safe, I kind of immediately want to like disengage or unplug. So Tommy with the wisdom as always. Hi Tommy. So this is something that I've been saying to this person I was telling you about, where they've got this person who's potentially like not a great influence in their lives. You are the average of the 5 people you spend the most time with. The people you surround yourself with have a significant influence on your behaviors, attitudes, and success. Their habits, values, and mindset can shape your own life in subtle or profound ways. Be very discerning who you surround yourself with. Yeah, absolutely. And there's studies around that show that basically if you have friends that have got divorced, your likelihood of getting divorced goes up by a certain percentage. I'll see if I can find that stat because it is really interesting. And there's another similar thing around like weight, I think. Hang on. Um, so divorce friends increased chances. Let's see if we can find that. And there's one about like obesity and things as well. And it's kind of staggering how they figure out these things. So having a divorced friend can increase the likelihood of divorce for a person, and the effect can also extend to friends of friends. So if you're directly connected with somebody who's got divorced, the increased likelihood of divorce is by 75%. And if it's a friend of a friend, so let's say your friend has had a friend who's got divorced, your likelihood of getting divorced increases by 33%. And then 3 degrees of separation, so a friend of a friend of a friend, the association disappears. Is anyone like surprised by that? I'm surprised at 33% for a friend of a friend. And let's look up the thing for obesity or healthiness or see what the thing was. And also, if anyone meanwhile just has a question at any point or anything that they could use a bit of support or feedback on from me or the community or kind of a fresh perspective or just to feel like seen and heard, please do share. We kind of have this session as a bit of a like sharing circle as well. So obesity chances increased by friends. I think it's even higher if it's like a partner. So for anyone who's just joined and missed it, we're just talking about okay, so the chances of becoming obese increase if a close friend becomes obese. So the relationship, if it's a close friend, your chances of obesity increases by 57%. If it's a same-sex close friend, it increases by 71%. If it's a mutual close friend, I don't know what that means, but a mutual close friend is 171%. Um, and a sibling is 40%, spouse is 37%. So a spouse becoming obese has like half the impact on you than a same-sex friend in increasing your chances of obesity, which is madness. I wouldn't have expected that at all. So let's see. So yeah, JV, you've got okay, wait, so Peterbrook and let me see, let me catch up on everyone. So hi Laurie, hi Artie, hi Howard. Um, so Peterbrook and JV both have CPTSD. Yeah, and I think like I don't know loads about it. I think it's at least as I understand it and what I've been told, it's quite a new phenomenon. Is that the right word? And yeah, energy drain as well. And yeah, good self care helps a lot for sure. But I think for me particularly, and I think I wonder how does, if you guys don't mind me asking, and feel free to just message me directly, and maybe we can start a little CPTSD circle, or maybe I'll do a separate session for that. But how does it typically play out for you, or like what are the most challenging moments? Because it's also hard for me sometimes to differentiate and understand like what is CPTSD and what's being caused by that or triggered by that, and then what's like, let's say, anxious attachment or just, poor self regulation on my part. So Tommy, again with the pearls of wisdom. Tommy, you should think about being a teacher on here. If you practice false humility by giving to others without limitation or regard for your own self, it drains your energy. This can manifest as illness, scarcity of material resources, and anger and resentment. This shadow makes us give to the wrong people who will exploit or take advantage of us so that we could see this shadow within ourselves. Yeah, absolutely. So, I have heard that a lot of the time things that like trigger us or things that we find fault with are essentially it's us holding a mirror up to ourselves without us realizing it. So the things that bother us about other people or the things that we kind of struggle with, potentially they're things that we don't like about ourselves or things that we've had to like deal with previously or trying to work through, etc. So yeah, then the question kind of becomes, so we've talked a bit about like boundaries and spending time with like the wrong people. But it's also, I think, on the other side of it, it's really important to reflect on how we spend time with the right people and also actively seek them out. Because I do believe that, as we go through life, I'm not saying that, it's a one in, one out policy or anything like that. But generally, as we go through life and we're busier, um, and we meet more people, etc., and things happen in our own lives and in the lives of other people, we end up sort of losing touch with other people and naturally we have a limited amount of time, and who we choose to give that time to is really important. So let's say you were making an active effort to meet people who are kind of more on your wavelength and have similar kind of interests and values to you, and then you're spending time with them as well. And slowly over time you might just find naturally that you have less time or less capacity for people who aren't um on your level or on your wavelength. And when I say level, I'm not talking kind of, in the sense of like hierarchy, but I mean more just people who are, yeah, on your wavelength, on the same kind of journey as you, there's that, going in the same direction. And there's a lot of things that I've been kind of reading and hearing about the fact that um when it comes to things like success, health, etc. And even, when we look at those stats, which are absolutely crazy, of just being friends with someone who, being a friend of someone who got divorced, can, how, that can affect your increased likelihood of getting divorced by 33%. It goes to show that, just who you spend your time with and who those people spend their time with does affect you, even if you don't think it. And that's a really challenging one, right? Because so for me, in my life, obviously I've got people I'm really close to, but ideally I would prefer or would like to kind of stay in my lane and not tell them um who they should or shouldn't spend time with, etc. Like I can kind of give them my sort of caring opinion if I feel that they're being taken advantage of or taken for granted or etc. But it's kind of not really my place to say like anything beyond that. But it's difficult because obviously at the same time as we're learning now, who the people close to us spend time with does affect us too. So, and it affects them whether they realize it or not. Um, and I think that's always an interesting line, is like, and that's something that I'm trying to learn to do a lot more. Is, this is a phrase that I've been also using a lot recently, and I heard about it from a couple of people I listen to and watch on YouTube, around like staying in your lane. So focusing on yourself and what you need to do or what you can do, and prioritizing your life and your needs and your goals, rather than trying to change other people or trying to worry about or focus on what other people are doing. So let me catch up on the comments. So Laurie, you've been struggling with unexpressed anger. Yeah, I mean, a lot of us do, and there's some really great courses on Insight Timer around that sort of thing. So if you drop me a message afterwards, I can share one of them that I was recently like looking at. I can't remember the name of the teacher right now, but I'm hoping to put some courses on here at some point too. But obviously, as many of you know, so I'm a fairly new teacher. This is like session number 5. And Tommy says, life is like a school of mirrors showing us to us. Absolutely. And you've got the blue butterfly emoji. Did anyone watch that show on Apple TV? It was about the Morpho machine, and I can't remember the name of it, but I think, is it Chris O'Dowd was in it? Does anyone know what I'm talking about? It was quite good. It's quite entertaining. But there's a blue butterfly that features very prominently in that show, if anyone has seen it. So JV, Priyanka, it shows up a bit differently for each person. There's an excellent book that explains a lot, Complex PTSD by Pete Walker. I'm gonna write that down. Let me put it into my Google just so I know. So Complex PTSD by Pete Walker. I'm sure I've had that recommended to me before actually as well. Okay. So um it's really strange. I can see myself live on 2 tabs here, but I'm guessing that you guys can see and hear me, so I'm assuming everything's okay. I don't know if I've literally got the live started in 2 tabs, which is really strange. And I can see the comment about, "Ah, yes, definitely, the big door prize." Yeah, that's the one. That was it. I forgot what it was called because in my head I was just like Morpho machine. But does anyone have any specific like situations that they're happy to kind of share, or that they want like feedback or advice on, around some of the things that we've been talking about like boundaries and friendships? And finding and letting the right people into your life and making space for them. Um, and because one of the things that I wanted to share is like I do want us to all kind of learn from each other. And if you have any stories or examples of where you've done this effectively, even if it's not something you're struggling with now, or what it feels like when you do find your tribe, so to speak, or like changing from like the people that you surround yourself with, sort of evolving that from people who maybe weren't a positive, growth driven influence on you, or because the thing is, like, I guess people don't even have to necessarily make you grow. It depends on what's valuable to you and what you want. Because if you are someone that works really hard and you have, and you do a lot of work on yourself, etc., you may just want friends um that you just have a laugh with, or like go to some comedy or go for a drink or whatever. But I find that my and I find that, like, I have friends who are similarly growth driven, and they have a lot of deep thinking, and a lot of we have a lot of like quite serious, like important big conversations, but we also have a laugh together. And at the same time, I also have friends who are kind of easier to hang out with, where the conversation is sometimes more surface level. And I find that the people that I do want to spend the most time around, for me personally, are the ones where I can talk about anything and everything. I feel like supported and held and heard and understood. And, I feel like seen, I guess. And I think that is the difference, really, is like sometimes, and tell me in the comments if any of you know what I'm speaking about with this, or understand or feel it. But when you spend time with people who aren't necessarily aligned with you, you might have to kind of play down parts of your like personality, of where you're at now, things that you're currently focusing on or thinking about or worried about, or goals that you have. You might find yourself like playing small. So I'll give you an example. Like, sometimes when I have friends who are maybe a little bit less like motivated or a little bit less driven, I find that I have to play down what I'm doing, or some of like my achievements. Or it's the very common thing where, if you, like, let's say you spend time with someone who like complains a lot, then, or always talks about what a terrible time they're having, it's a natural thing where, when they then ask you like, oh, how are things going with you, don't you feel sometimes a little bit like you can't be like, yeah, like things are great, I'm doing this and this and this that I'm really excited about. You kind of feel like you have to sort of be like, oh yeah, like, well, like, this thing happened to me as well, because it just feels weird to match this like negative complaining energy with like positive enthusiasm and whatever. And obviously you still do sometimes, and you can, but it's almost like you don't want them to feel like even more terrible about like whatever they have going on, if that makes sense. So yeah, ego. Have you got any examples of that ego, or any particular stories? And that's something that I honestly would love to work on doing a lot less, is like, and I've been good at it in the past, and I feel like somewhere along the line I need to kind of recalibrate and get back to that. But focusing on the positive and not kind of complaining or not talking about the negative, or what's missing, rather than what's there. And another little tip, like most of you probably do this anyway, um but I do I write in a gratitude journal every single night before I go to bed. It was always I've done it for more than 10 years now, and I always do it without fail. And that's a wonderful, wonderful practice. Um it's really great for, at the end of the day, when you have to like go over all the good things, you kind of remember stuff. When you get into habit of doing this, you remember little things that would have otherwise passed you by, that you might not have remembered or known. And even when you go through your day, it means that you're more attuned to the positive things, and more focused on like what is actually going right, or what's gone right. So let's catch up on the comments. I don't think we've got anything new, really. So Marsha, you said applets, but I don't know if I've missed something. I don't know if I missed something else. So, yeah, so basically that's the main thing that sort of, I guess, came up for me when we were talking about when we ended up Apple TV, yeah. Apple TV is great, by the way, for anyone that hasn't really watched stuff on there. I find that I personally just really like and I'm not like advertising it, this is just personal opinion. Um, I just find that there's a lot less choice on there, but there's really high quality stuff. And this is something that's quite interesting actually as well, is that there are a lot of studies and stats nowadays that show that when we have too many choices, we actually go into kind of like we go into paralysis a little bit. So that's why, let's say, you're trying to find something to watch, and there's like several different streaming platforms and several different things on all of them, and you basically aren't sure of which one, what you want to watch or why, and you scroll through for ages. And it's because, and if you only had like four or five choices, chances are you'd pick one thing pretty quickly. And there's studies that show this, is like if a supermarket has too many types of jam, sometimes, they had like a little stand in the front, and they did a study to see when do people buy more jam, if there's like loads of different flavors to choose from, or if there's just like two flavors. And essentially, when you have less choices, you find it easier to make a decision. Blockbuster syndrome. I didn't know that was what it was called, but yeah. I mean, I've always said, I think Netflix used to have like a shuffle function, but I don't think they do it anymore. But I've always said that I think they should have that. But Apple TV has a lot less like choice, but it is, at least in my opinion, it's like quality over quantity. So Stephanie says, I learned as a young mum, instead of asking what would you like to wear, to ask, do you want to wear this or this? Yeah, and that's fantastic. And that's exactly the right thing to do. Stephanie, how did you learn that? Was that through trial and error, or did you get given that advice, or find that out from someone? Big time trial and error. So what used to happen before when you would say, what do you want to wear? Did all hell break loose, or was it like weird outfits, or what was the what did that look like? So, and there's other studies as well that show in the it took forever to decide. There's a really brilliant book, which I don't know if I've mentioned this before, but for anyone who's like dating, or just interested in understanding the kind of landscape of the current dating world. But it tells us a lot about just ourselves and culture now as well. Um, the book is by a comedian called Aziz Ansari, and it's called Modern Romance. And it's so fantastic. It's really funny and witty and easy to read. But ultimately, there's a few really big takeaways from that book. So one of them is that basically you'll have more luck in dating if you have more dates with the same person, or like fewer people. So what he says is, if you go on like 10 dates with one person or two people, compared to like if you go on 10 first dates with 10 different people, you'll have a lot more luck with one or two people. Because what he says is, like, the more choice you have, the harder it becomes to make a decision, and the kind of, the more like ephemeral everything feels, and you just can, essentially you don't really give people a chance, and you're just like, next, next, next. Oh, if I don't like this one small thing, then like I can find someone else. And the other part of it is as well, it's like, if you look at how, when we're picking like a restaurant to go to, and he talks about this in the book, it's, you basically end up like taking ages again to decide, because there's so many choices. So, and it's partly because we're used to just having so much choice. Now we find it really hard to make a decision. And like, I do that. If I very, very rarely order a takeaway, but anytime I do, I need at least like 2 hours to scroll through all the options and figure out like what I actually want, or like what's the best like value, or what will deliver kind of in the best condition, and won't be like soggy or cold or whatever. And he essentially, Aziz Ansari says in this book, that one of the things that we kind of miss out on through the kind of modern dating culture now is that there's where people used to kind of fall in love with people they knew in real life or at work or whatever. Obviously they would usually know those people like a little bit, or have seen them a few times. And one of the things that happens is, when you spend time with people, you have chances to see them from different perspectives. And the example that he gives is, have you ever had known anyone in your life where typically you would never kind of find them attractive, or they would never be like someone that you'd think that you'd be attracted to, but then something happens where either like you see them in different light, or there's like a little situation, or there's like a little spark. And I don't even mean that you feel a spark with them, but I just mean that and in some cases it can be that, yeah, you find a spark with someone that you've spent time with before and never felt anything towards. Or on the other hand, it's just you might be able to, you see them in a different light and you're like, oh, I see how someone could find this person attractive, etc. And what he says is that the more time you spend with one person, the more you give yourself the opportunity to create those situations, or for things to come up naturally like that, where you can have those moments and potentially connect with them in that way. So that's quite an interesting thing to think about. What he says is, if there's no like red flags and you enjoy their company, then keep like seeing them, keep spending time with them, and you shouldn't be looking for a spark. So let's see what. So Stephanie says, and how it translates to entrepreneurship or dating. A confused mind doesn't buy or date. Yeah, but although unfortunately, Stephanie, like in this day and age, confused minds very often date, and that's why kind of there's this massive culture, especially. I've spent a lot of time in New York, and I live in London now, and it's kind of similar here, but I think New York's like even worse. People complain all the time, at least friends that I have that live there, about how flaky and like challenging the dating culture is in New York, particularly because everybody everyone basically, it's very like throwaway from what I've heard, and people are very like disposable, and it's very like next, next, next. And yeah, it's sad because I think people ultimately do want to find relationships and connection, or at least say they do, but then like don't really give things a chance. Or if there's like a very small thing, then they might not give things a shot, or like bother to follow up. My hair's doing a weird thing. So yeah. And there's one other thing that I was going to talk about, but I'm going to have a sip of water first. Does anyone have anything that they want to share, or any questions about anything I've said so far, or anything they want to hear more about? So we've got 96 meditators here. So just a little reminder that if there's anything that any questions you have, just generally for yourself, anything that you're struggling with, or anything that you're trying to achieve that we can support you with or on, please share it in the chat. And you can, you've got there's such a wonderful community here. There's like 97 of us, including me. And if you need a fresh perspective, or you just want to feel like seen and heard and supported, like now is a place and time where it's safe for you to do that. And Tommy says, have the courage to be imperfect. Have the compassion first yourself, then others. Be willing to be completely authentic, and you'll find deep connections. Let yourself be fully seen, deeply seen, vulnerably seen. Love with your whole heart, even though there's no guarantee. Practice gratitude and joy. Believe that you are enough just as you are. That's beautiful. So actually, it kind of leads me nicely on to the other reading that I wanted to do from this book that I mentioned. Let me see if I can find it. That's 166. Okay. So there was like a few different things, but this is one of them. It's called Mess. And for anyone that missed it earlier, the book that I'm reading a few things from today is called The Comfort Book by Matt Haig. The hardest thing to be is yourself. We are so overloaded that we can't always see the truth of who we are. Oh, Stephanie, you've got to run. It was lovely to see you. Thanks for being here. And anyone who doesn't know Stephanie, give her a follow and attend her sessions. I go to her Sunday night one usually where I can, and I think she might have a couple of others. So yeah, Mess. The hardest thing is to be yourself. We're so overloaded that we can't always see the truth of who we are. We distract ourselves to distraction. Sometimes we clutter our lives deliberately to take our minds off the clutter inside our heads. When we take the external clutter away, we have to face the clutter inside ourselves, all the mess. And the more we focus on it, the more we see order in it. There is a reason why everything is where it is. We might want to order the mess a different way, or we might feel the mess is perfectly fine. But we are imperfect because we are alive. We are messy because the universe began with an explosion, and the debris has drifted ever since. We are messy mammals on a messy planet in a messy cosmos. To deny mess is to deny who we are. To see it, to allow it, to forgive it, is to reach a state of what Buddhist and psychologist Tara Brach calls radical acceptance, where we can appreciate our so called flaws or imperfections as a natural part of existence. And then we can exist with openness and honesty, rather than shrink ourselves by trying to shut ourselves away, like the contents of a cluttered cupboard. We can, in short, live. So that was mess from this book, and there was another one that that kind of sort of that, and this was on the page afterwards, and this is the bit that I'd saved to read through. And Tommy's the thing that Tommy said reminded me of this. So this is called Aim to Be You. If you aim to be something you are not, you will always fail. Aim to be you. Aim to look and act and think like you. Embrace that you-ness. Endorse it, cherish it, love it, and don't give a if people mock you for it. I don't know if we're allowed to swear on Insight Timer, so I just generally don't. But if anyone does know, let me know. And this is on the page afterwards. This is called Cup. You have no control over who people think you are, so don't worry. If they want to hate a fictional version of you that lives in their minds, let them. Don't drain yourself trying to be understood by people who insist on not understanding you. Keep your cup full. Go to the kindness. I really like that one. Yeah, I think that's the really interesting point. Is like sometimes people can misunderstand us or think think about our intentions in like a misguided way, or maybe like because often we can be misunderstood, and that for me personally is really painful, where someone thinks that like I'm a bad person or I've done something bad, or where my intentions have been misunderstood. Like it's really difficult, especially if you're coming from a good place and you're not trying to be a dick or trying to be a horrible person, and you meant well but like something just didn't work out the way that you hoped or planned. It is really difficult and really painful. So I think there's like two more that I'll read from here, but I'm gonna put that aside for now. How's everybody doing? Is everyone having a nice time being here? Thank you for the hearts. Just a little like ad break. That I would absolutely love your support on Insight Timer. So if you're able to follow me here, if you're able to make a donation to show your gratitude for my time, I'd obviously really appreciate that. I've had a few very kind donations on my 4 sessions so far. So yeah, if we can keep up the streak, I'd really love that. And I also have a link tree in my bio, and there's a YouTube link on there for the previous sessions that we've done. There's been a few different themes and topics that we've covered. So if any of you have missed any of the past sessions, you can kind of follow and kind of catch up on the replays on there. But yeah, I'd appreciate a follows on here and on YouTube if you're able to, and also any donations that you are able to support me with today would be amazing. As I've mentioned on previous sessions, I've just gone through redundancy at work, and so the main thing I'm spending my time doing at the moment is obviously some Insight Timer, and also I'm working on a kind of community theatre project, and that's like volunteering based. So yeah, and that's quite an exciting thing. So the show will start at the end of November, and if anyone is in London or can easily get to London and fancies doing some cool volunteering stuff, feel free to send me a message and I can give you more info on that. So yeah, before we read a little bit more from the comfort book, we've got half an hour left together. Is there anything that anyone particularly wants to cover or ask, or any topics that anyone wants me to kind of elaborate on just now. So we had on Friday, we did a little kind of ask me anything type session, and I think some people did come with questions around like relationships or friendships that they had in their life where they were maybe a little bit like inconsistent or flaky or one-sided, and all of us collectively offered a bit of kind of support and feedback and a fresh perspective on that. So if anyone has anything specific that they feel kind of comfortable and brave enough to share, then yeah, please do let us know, and we can support you. So let me see. Right. So the other thing that I looked up that I've been hearing a lot about um recently is something called tend and befriend. Has anyone else heard about this? Because I find that sometimes things come up and they come up again and again, and you hear them repeatedly, and it's kind of a bit of a nudge or a sign that okay, maybe this is something to pay attention to, or maybe it's just something that's quite popular at the moment. But I heard about this in two ways. So I started a course on Insight Timer that was around befriending your triggers, and that was earlier today. And one of the concepts that came up in that is tend and befriend, and it's a concept I think from kind of psychology and how we as humans try to keep ourselves safe, and when we're feeling stressed, that's one of the kind of responses that we can sometimes have. And then I was also listening to a podcast, Diary of a CEO by Stephen Bartlett. I don't know if any of you know it or have heard of it, but I highly recommend it. It's really, really good. And this was both these things were today. And this podcast, the woman who was like the guest on this podcast, she is a doctor, and she was talking about her main like thing that she advocates around is like strength training and resistance training, and how having like strong bone density and muscle mass will is one of the biggest like markers for health and wellness, and most of us aren't meeting the daily like recommended requirements for resistance and strength training. And despite that being her focus, she was also talking about like stress and stuff. And I only got a little bit into this podcast. I still have the rest of it to listen to. But she mentioned the tend and befriend concept as well. And I thought, wow, I need to look into this. And it fed in quite nicely to the kinds of things that we talk about in my sessions, and the sort of themes we explore. So I'm going to talk about it today. But if anyone knows about it, please let me know. Send up some hearts. Or if you don't know about it, actually, if you know about it, put a little message in the chat. If you don't know about it and you'd like to know, send up some hearts. So, the tend and befriend theory is a behavioral response to stress that describes how people may seek out social connections and protect their offspring in times of threat. The theory suggests that this response is more common in females than males, and that it has positive effects on the physical and mental health of both the mother and her children. The tend and befriend response is characterized by two behaviors: tending, caring for and protecting offspring, and then there's also befriending, creating and maintaining social networks for support and protection. The theory suggests that oxytocin, an affiliative hormone, may be responsible for the impetus to seek social contact. The human stress response is often characterized as a fight or flight response, but some believe that the tend and befriend response is more common in females. This may be due to the fact that females often need to protect themselves from harm in addition to caring for their young. So, one of the things that came up when this was being talked about was that might be why historically we lived in communities, and that as kind of human beings and social beings, part of the reason that we are social beings is because in the past it was our way to keep ourselves safe, and actually our survival depended on it. So I'm just gonna reduce this light a little bit. It's a little bit bright. It's kind of like right in my eye. That's a bit better. Yeah, so that's one of the kind of theories around that, is that that's why we that's why we gravitate towards people, and we struggle and suffer when we have loneliness or isolation, because we're not meant to, and biologically we're built to connect with other people, to kind of live in community, and not to just exist in a silo. just catching up on the comments. So, Tommy, you guys are quieter than usual today. I mean, we've got the usual voices, and thanks, Michelle. Tommy, love that. The reason we're here is to experience the universe through our unique perspective. Be unique, be truth, be love. Yeah, that's beautiful. So much to contemplate, and I've loved. And this is Peterbrook or Lauren. So much to contemplate, and I've loved the content and responses. Oh, that's very sweet of you. So, I think, can you guys hear me clearly? Because I think I may have just pressed a button on my microphone. Is it working? Great. Cool. So, this is also from the Comfort Book. Let it be. Get out of your own way. Being yourself isn't something you have to do. You were born yourself, and you didn't even have to try. In fact, trying is the whole problem. You can't try to be, you can only let yourself be. So I'm going to read that again because I feel like it's quite profound. Get out of your own way. And the thing is, where things come up again and there's themes that kind of recur is like this is one of those things where this has come up quite a few times. There's a book called Oh Tommy, it was nice to see you. Take care. Have a lovely evening. Um or day, depending on where you are. So yeah, get out of your own way. There was a book that I read a little bit from last week. I think it was on Friday, and that book is called Get Out of Your Own Way, and it's by Mark Goulston and someone else. And basically, he talks in there about he talks in there around how quite often we engage in kind of self-defeating behaviors, and there's practical tips on how to overcome that. So one of the things we talked about, I think it was Friday, or it might have been the week before. Possibly the week before. But he basically talks about how we, sometimes like our short-term intentions, which are, to address the issue or like, react to something or whatever, are often not in line with our long-term intentions. So our if we, let's say hypothetically, we want like a happy, healthy relationship, but we constantly like let's say are upset with our partner or whatever, and us criticizing our partner or calling them out on things that we might be able to let go might feel good in the moment because what it gives us, because we kind of very rarely do things more than once. If we logically know that it's a self-defeating behavior, we rarely do it more than once unless we're getting something from it. And quite often what we get in those situations where we, let's say, complain or criticize, is we get a small release of anxiety in the moment. But then the problem is that obviously you have that release of anxiety, but potentially it has a knock-on effect that takes you further away from your longer term end goal. So, it's the same sort of thing where, let's say you're trying to be healthy and strong and fit, but then, let's say you overindulge at one point and it's like the short term, release from like comfort eating or indulging kind of gives you temporary relief of like the anxiety or the stress, or it gives you that comfort, but then you're not acting, you're taking yourself further away from your ultimate overall end goals. And there's a woman that I've been watching, some of her clips on YouTube recently, and she's a kind of relationship psychologist, and I've watched a lot of her stuff and it's getting a bit kind of samey now because some of the messaging is quite similar. But one of the interesting things that she says is that the mark of a high value man or woman isn't to do with like their, what they have or what they like do in life or whatever. What it is, one of the big things that, it's worth looking out for. And this is, she talked about in relationship, but I think potentially in anyone you spend time with or even in yourself, like this is something we should all be kind of striving towards, is the ability to like delay short-term gratification in order to, and the ability to prioritize our longer term values and our kind of bigger longer term goals. over, just what's right in front of us. And what she says is that she talks about it, in the context of relationships. And she says if you've got a man who, can be distracted or swayed by, let's say, like women or alcohol or like drugs, that and he prioritizes that over his like longer term values or goals or whatever. And like, let's say he's happy to be hungover and like miss work, then that puts you at risk in your future. So this advice was like for women, it's like if you choose to be with a man who has no control over, or discipline over short-term gratification and can't delay it in order to achieve long-term goals, then potentially, if let's say he's distracted by like other beautiful women or whatever, if you have children, you're putting yourself at risk. Whereas if you have somebody who is kind of like committed to their own goals and can clearly follow through on what they've committed to or said that they would do for themselves, that's a really good indicator of, just character and I guess like them valuing themselves and therefore their ability to also like value you in the relationship correctly. So I don't remember where I got to that from. But I just thought, yeah, that's interesting. That kind of thing of, because we were talking about delayed gratification. And, all of us know about like the marshmallow test. And if you don't, I'll briefly summarize. But ultimately, they say that, hi, E, nice to see you. Ultimately, one of the things that they say is like, they did these tests on kids years and years ago. And they basically leave a child in a room with like a marshmallow and they say that, oh, don't eat this. If you don't eat it, when I come back, you'll get two. And the children who could wait for the second marshmallow and, wait for that, um, were more successful than the ones that just ate the marshmallow as soon as the person left the room. So, yeah, it's kind of and that's kind of evidence in childhood of, if you can learn how to delay gratification or you have the ability to do that, um, you will end up kind of potentially becoming more successful because you're looking at what's best for you longer term, not you could have waited forever. Peter Rick dislike marshmallows. Yeah. I mean, I'm not sure. I'm sure they've done it with like chocolate cookies or whatever as well. But yeah, that certainly makes it easier, doesn't it? If you don't like the thing that you've got to wait for. Um, and ultimately, the kind of lesson there is obviously that if you can, because what we want shorter term, quite often the payoff of that is also shorter term. And when we kind of look at our longer term future needs, we are building things that will last longer than whatever the kind of short term pleasure or short term payoff is. So, and I kind of I look at that as well in like, other situations. I've had this advice previously. I can't remember where I've read or heard about this. I think actually it was in an ebook that I read a couple of months ago. I don't remember what it was called, but it was one of those random ones on like Kindle, the kind of free Kindle included subscriptions. But it was actually really good. And one of the things the guy said is that he says in this book that anytime you're in a situation, if you have the ability to hit pause and take a step back and reflect on what is best for me, like what is best for my long term well being. If I was acting from a place of prioritizing my long term well being, what would I do in this situation? What would I say? Or what would I not do or not say? And, that seems like such an obvious, easy thing because we all know, oh, we should respond, not react, right? But actually, even when we are responding, we're quite often not thinking proactively about, like, what is best for my long term well being and what is it that I want long term. And, whatever I say or do, will that affect it? So So JV, you said that it also could mean that the child has ADHD, etc. Doesn't mean they aren't high value. Yeah, so I think she was just speaking more specifically about like, in the context of, where there aren't necessarily like other factors, but just, let's say someone is like, and she was talking about it from the point of view of like habits, like particularly unhealthy indulgences and habits like um gambling or like, she was saying specific things like if someone's interested in, let's say, like gambling and isn't able to like, save their money effectively or like prioritize what they want for their future and basically just spends their time or money like drinking or gambling or doing drugs, then that's more where the kind of red flag of them, not potentially prioritizing or being like someone that you could comfortably settle down with where you wouldn't be at risk basically. So that's what she was talking about in that sense. Yeah. Because I certainly make a lot of choices on a regular basis where, I'm not, and this is like in terms of how I respond and react to things, also like, sometimes what I choose to eat. I'm not always acting in line with my best long-term well-being. In fact, like I'd say less than half the time I'm not, but I'd like to be. Um, but I think again with the ADHD thing, I've not been diagnosed, but I've from what I've kind of seen and heard and friends who have that, I've also I'm kind of I think I do display a lot of the kind of traits and characteristics. So you were saying it's so hard though. Yeah, it's honestly it's really difficult because like for example, I know that if I go to bed earlier, I would be able to wake up earlier, I'd be able to be a bit more productive. I would have more kind of like actual daylight hours, and there's no real good reason for me to go to bed late, and it's not like particularly affecting me in a negative way, which is why I carry on doing it. But I know that sometimes if let's say there's something that I want to go to of an early morning, it would be much harder for me to wake up and do it. So it does kind of mean that sometimes I don't have certain like options compared to if I was in a better routine. But quite often they say that, the reason that we change things or do better is because either the pain of not doing the thing becomes too high, like the pain or the cost, or alternatively, um, we like something big happens that then pushes us to that point. Just catching up on the comments. So yeah, JB was saying that it does. Yeah, you do agree with those aspects. Yeah, and it's so hard. I think I've already read that. Sorry, I'm a little bit like brain like not frazzled, but like definitely had a long day, and it's like 10:20 p.m. here. So yeah, I was thinking, would you guys like to? How would you like to kind of spend the last 10 minutes and wind down today? So we've got the crystal oracle cards that we had last time. If anyone would like one of those, I can grab the deck and we can pull some of those cards. Or we can just kind of wrap up with a normal chat the way we sort of usually do. Has anyone got a preference at all? Or would anyone like a crystal oracle card? Or I can read a little bit more from the comfort book. So we got one vote from Peter Brook for the oracle cards. If you'd like the crystal oracle cards, send up hearts. And if anyone else would like anything else, in the please like drop a message in the chat. I'm gonna just grab those cards real quick. But does anyone before I do grab the cards, does anyone have any kind of follow up comments or questions or kind of closing remarks on the stuff we've covered so far? And I'll just go grab the cards and give my voice like a 5-second break. And if anyone wants to hear the guinea pig squeaking, I don't know if you could hear that. Actually, you can probably hear it now. Can you guys hear the piggies? Oh, hey Mel, nice to see you. So the comfort book is this book. So it's by a guy called Matt Haig, and it's basically little mini readings, kind of a bit like poems. And I'll read one of them now because I think we've been through a few of them. Let me see. Okay. So some of them are super short, like this. This one's called Power. The most powerful moment in life is when you decide not to be scared anymore. So that's like a very, very, very super short one. Okay, this one is called Growing Pains, and I'm excited about this. I haven't read it. So a lot of these I haven't read. So actually, I took this book out of the library like several months ago, and my local library, you can set books to auto renew, and you can renew them up to 10 times. So I've literally had this book probably for like several months, and I've read like a few pages of it, but I'm only really getting to it now, and so I'm really grateful to be able to share this with you guys, but also to actually read a bit of this book. So this is called Growing Pains. When everything goes well, we tend not to grow, because to grow we need to change, because growth is change. It is generally when we face hard times that we evolve. This is kind of exactly what I was saying around, we don't typically change things unless the pain or the cost becomes too high. Often we need to fail in order to learn, just as a bodybuilder needs weight to resist against. It is impossible to grow in a world without struggle. Suffering has been stronger than all other teaching and has taught me to understand what your heart used to be. Actually, wait, this is a different. So I thought that I was carrying on reading the same thing, but then this is, I think, like a Charles Dickens quote. So, yeah, Growing Pains ends with it is impossible to grow in a world without struggle. And then this is on the next page, and it's just a quote from Charles Dickens from Great Expectations. Suffering has been stronger than all other teaching and has taught me to understand what your heart used to be. I have been bent and broken, but I hope into a better shape. So, Mel, don't worry about necessarily grabbing the book. Like, I think it's not a bad book, but I don't think it's worth like necessarily acquiring. And also, one thing I'll say, guys, if you can go to your local library, because at least in the UK, you can literally order any book and you can ask them to get it for you. So you might have to like wait a little bit for it, but I think it's a much nicer way than buying books that then you maybe read once. So that's worth doing. Or if you do buy books, like make sure you kind of like pay them forward, or you know give them new life as well where possible. Because I don't know about you guys, but I'm always trying to like acquire less stuff. Or well, I'm trying to always clear out because I have a lot of stuff in the building that I live in. I'm really lucky. People give away things quite a lot, and so I've like even the TV that I've got, which is a massive TV. I found it in the bin room, which is amazing. I think that's manifesting because it literally works with the remote for my old. Hi, Catherine. Lovely to see you. It works with the TV remote of my old TV, so that's why I think it was just meant to be. But I'll tell that story another time because it's a really, really cool story about like how I actually got it, and I've got a couple of other like manifestation stories that maybe I'll share on the next session. So I've got the oracle cards here. I'm gonna pull one for the group first of all, and then let me see who was it that wanted one first. I feel like it was Peter Burke, and then if anyone else wants one, I've probably got time for a few more. So this is our group card. Oh, we have Bloodstone. That's Bloodstone there. Return your spirit to its natural state of joy and vitality. So this is for all of us. We've got to return our spirits to their natural state of joy and vitality. So let me grab one now for Peter Brook. And then we've got Blanca. Okay. So we've got Bronzite for you, Peter Brook, which I'm pretty sure came up last time. Restore harmony and self-confidence in all you do. So, Blanca, let's get one for you. Let me just give them a good mix. I'm trying to do it one-handed because, as those of you know who were at the beginning of the session, my microphone just won't like stay on my top and the audio wasn't as good. So, let's see. Okay. Ooh, we have a pretty one that we've not had before. Yeah, no, I know it wasn't for you, but I just remember it came up. I think it might have been for, feel like it was for like, maybe for Tommy or someone. We can look at the replay and check. But I know you had a different one. So we have for you, Blanca, Aquamarine. So exhilarate and relax. Eternal youth and happiness is coming to you. That's exciting. Does that seem familiar at all? Does that seem like something that's coming towards you at the moment? Eternal youth and happiness. That's always nice to hear. Would anyone else like a card? Feel free to pop in the chat if you would. No one? There's apparently 156 people here. Okay, Mel. Yeah. because we've got a couple of minutes until the end, and I thought this was a nice way to wrap up and end things. Ooh, Mel. I feel like love might be on the cards for you. You've got rose quartz. Carry unconditional love with you. Be peaceful. Melissa, is that you that would like a reading? I'm assuming you're saying yes to that. Let's see. Oh, wow. I've never seen this before. Sardonyx. Has anyone heard of sardonyx? It looks like this. You are powerful and in control of your destiny. It's got a really interesting look as well, doesn't it? You are powerful and in control of your destiny. Does anyone else want a reading in the last few minutes? The piggies are getting into some mischief. I can hear them. I did say I would get Monkey for the. You know what? I'll get Monkey to end the session on. That'll be a nice thing to do. So, for those of you who don't know, I have 3 very cute guinea pigs. And those of you who've been to my sessions before, you've met Pumpkin and Bear, and so I'll get Monkey to meet you guys now. And then everyone, Catherine is one of my favorite teachers on Insight Timer. She was like one of the first people I discovered in the live sessions, and she's been such an amazing support to like my journey being a teacher, and she's going live in 30 minutes. So please like follow her, join her session as well, and I will be right back with Monkey. So this is Monkey. He's a little bit more like wriggly than the other pigs. But yeah. He's a lot more active, and he's caught on my necklace right now. Monkey, monkey, monkey. He's got a really interesting colouring actually. He's got like this little stripe over here on the side. He loves being stroked, but he's like quite fidgety to begin with. Can you guys hear me? Can you hear Monkey actually? He's quite a squeaky pig. I'll see if I can put the mic here so that you guys can hear him squeaking away. Yeah, he's massive. He's the squeakiest piggy. So the vet said one time he went in for surgery, and the vet said that when he was coming round, he was still just like squeaking away. So has everyone here met Pumpkin and Bear, or you haven't yet? Because if you'd like to see Pumpkin and Bear, they're on 2 of my lives. They've been on 2 of my lives previously. Bear and Pumpkin are really squeaking as well because they can hear that like Monkey's getting attention. So yeah, I think that's kind of like we've covered all of the things today. If anyone would like to support me in my journey as an Insight Timer teacher, Pumpkin is currently trying to get into. So Monkey lives upstairs, and Bear and Pumpkin live downstairs because they don't get on. And Pumpkin's right now trying to climb upstairs into Monkey's space. I feel like I should turn my computer around and show you guys, but I'm not gonna do that just now. But is he distracting, or should I just hold on to him and hang on with? So he's very squeaky, isn't he? He's literally the squeakiest piggy. I'm gonna put him back so I can say bye to you guys properly, but I'll get him to say bye first. He's an extremely like squirmy, squeaky, like fidgety pig. Yeah. I'm now covered in guinea pig fluff. So yeah, where was I? Where were we? So we were just gonna wrap up basically. But I was just sharing. Yeah, please stand up with some hearts if you enjoyed the session. For anyone who is generous, in a position to share their generosity and support me with a donation, I'd really appreciate that. This is my fifth live, and I've had no donations this live that I can see, unfortunately. So I've had a good streak so far of the first four kind of, have been pretty like fruitful donation wise. So I'd love it if I can keep up the streak, but if not, you can support me by following me on Insight Timer, by sharing my lives and my tracks with any friends and family who you think could benefit. And also, you can find my link tree on my bio. And if you're able to follow me on YouTube, you can also watch the past sessions that we've had on there as well. So thank you guys. And it was really lovely to kind of have you all here. Yeah, so Peterbrook, if you look at if you go in my bio in my link tree, there's a link in there of other ways that you can support as well. So thank you so much, guys. And has anyone got any kind of closing remarks or questions? And if not, I might end on a little reading from the comfort book. Okay. A spinning coin. Uncertainty is the cause of anxiety, but also a solution. While everything is uncertain, everything is hope. Everything is ambiguous. Everything is possible. We exist on a spinning coin. We cannot predict how it will land, but we can enjoy the shine as it spins. And I think that's a nice little note to end on. So, even though there's loads of uncertainty and we don't know what's going to happen or, where things sit necessarily, we can try and enjoy the process and the journey. And yeah, Mel, infinite possibilities. So thank you so much, guys. Have a lovely night. And yeah, follow me on here if you don't already. Follow me on YouTube and then the other ways that I mentioned in my bio as well. And thank you for your support and your time and your energy and, sharing your light with the world as well. Good night, guys. Bye.